Hi, everyone. This is Victoria from Adelaide Capital. Today, I have Dan Reitzik with me, the CEO of TerraZero. So TerraZero is one of the leading companies for developing, acquiring, and creating brand builds, within the metaverse. But I know there's a whole lot more involved than that. So Dan, thanks for joining me today. Our mutual friend, Mark Binns, who's the CEO of Big Digital Assets, they own approximately 30% of TerraZero, but he says that there's no one that can speak to you and isn't going to come away excited about the metaverse. So I've definitely been looking forward to chatting with you. And with that, why don't we jump right in? What is the metaverse and what are the commercial opportunities that are in it?
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, the metaverse is just the next version of the internet. So with today's internet, we have a static web page. We search through different items. We add them to our cart. We pull out our credit card. We enter it in. We order products. We communicate with our friends through various types of social media, but they're still two-dimensional and they're still essentially a static web page. The metaverse, as far as our company is concerned, is just a next better version of today's internet. So, for example, we did a campaign with one of our clients, Jimmy John's. And Jimmy John's is a large restaurant chain in the United States. They're kind of like an upscale Subway. And we built a replica restaurant in one of the metaverse worlds where consumers could go in, learn about the different products and ingredients, make their own sandwich. And for this particular campaign, they submitted it as a contest entry, and the winner became the Meta Sandwich available at select Jimmy John's locations. But it led us to understanding how close we were to having a customer build their own product or sandwich and order it in the metaverse and have it delivered in their real life. And so as a company, there's three main parts to TerraZero. There's our studio that everybody hears about with all of the big clients that we work with. But there's also the other stuff that we do, which is creating the tools that bridge the real world and the metaverse. And with the example I just gave you with Jimmy John's, we've created a tool that enables someone to use a credit card inside the metaverse, not crypto, but a credit card, and actually have an order fulfillment to their home from something that they order in an immersive environment. So in terms of the opportunities in the metaverse, think of it almost like in the mid-90s, we had Web 1. And Web 1 was AOL, and it was Yahoo, and it was these static web pages. And then the next version was Web 2, and Web 2 was the proliferation of social media. A way to interact with each other, gave us all a voice, but also came with it the lack of privacy and erosion of our security of our data. Web 3 is just the next version of that. It's an immersive version of the internet. So in terms of the opportunities in the metaverse and Web 3, it's not just about brand activations. That's what you're seeing today. But what it is about everybody that has an e-commerce site today will have a v-commerce site in the future.
Right. So then I guess you just touched on this a little bit, in your example with Jimmy John's, but, how are you guys capitalizing on all of these opportunities?
Yeah, well, right now what we're seeing is brands are dipping their toes in. They're testing the waters. They're doing builds that are very simple, just like we saw with the beginning of the internet. You didn't have elaborate e-commerce sites at the beginning of the internet. You had very basic sites as brands understood, how do we use this technology? So an analogy I like to use is in the 1980s, Nike had one way to sell us a pair of shoes. It was a store on a street front. In the 1990s, Nike had a second way to communicate with its customers and sell them a pair of shoes, and that was the internet and e-commerce. The metaverse represents a third way for Nike to interact with its customers and sell them a pair of shoes. A lot of people think the metaverse is a video game, that you are buying a virtual sandwich or a pair of virtual shoes. No, you're buying a real pair of shoes and a real sandwich. To give you an idea of what different companies do, and these are our clients. One of our clients is Bacardi, and Bacardi has a very high-end bourbon called Angel's Envy. And they built a new distillery in Kentucky. And what TerraZero Studios did is build almost like a digital twin of that distillery inside the metaverse world and allowed customers to go in and learn the process of how bourbon was made. At the end of it, they could order an actual a kit for bourbon. That's one example of how people interact. Another example is Miller Lite. So Molson Coors is one of our very good clients, and we built them for the big game, the Super Bowl. We built them a replica bar where customers could go in, see the premiere of their TV commercial, but they could interact with the Miller brands. They could play games, win different prizes, talk to their friends, invite their friends into the bar. And what was interesting about this was, more than 20,000 individual avatars visited that Miller Lite bar on Super Bowl Sunday. Yeah. But what was really interesting was the average length of time that a consumer spent in there was over 26 minutes, which in advertising and marketing is absolutely unheard of. So, like I said, the metaverse is a more immersive way for brands and companies to communicate and interact with its customers.
Yeah, I remember that Miller Lite bar. I think I tried to go in there, but I'm not that tech savvy yet.
It's funny because there is this misconception that brands and companies are using this just as a marketing tool. They're not. They're using this as how do we communicate and be better for our customers, educate them more, and enable that commerce between the brand and the customer. Another example is Estee Lauder, one of our clients, and we built them. They have a cream that essentially makes your skin glow. I should probably use some. And essentially, we built a replica of the actual product itself, and people could go in, learn about how the product applies to their skin, learn how, the ingredients and everything else about the product. And then they could touch the actual dropper and it delivered an NFT for their avatar, which was a very exclusive NFT, but it made their avatar glow. And so when you're Estee Lauder and your customers are running around the virtual world with your NFT wearable, which made their avatar glow, that's an ongoing relationship with a customer well after they've left your store or your activation.
So then I guess, on the ground, in terms of all these brands, like what are you seeing in terms of involvement? Like how many brands are getting involved? Is it becoming a lot more mainstream or more mainstream than what people are probably thinking?
2022 is definitely the year of dipping their toes. It's the year of let's test some things out. Let's understand what's happening. And my previous company was a fairly significant blockchain analytics company, among other things. And this is something that as a company, as I mentioned before, there's three main parts to TerraZero. There's our studio that gets all the accolades, but then there's also the platform development division, which I'll get into in a minute, that is more of a scalable technology solutions. And then there's data analytics. And one of the problems with the metaverse today is that brands make decisions based on data. And the problem out there right now is there is no data. And so TerraZero has a data division. It's led by two former IBM Canada senior executives. One was the former director in charge of AI and blockchain. And they're basically figuring out what people are doing, where they're doing it, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, so that we can more effectively help our brand clients utilize this new medium.
So then if this is the year of dipping their toes in, like what percentage of marketing budgets would really be allocated towards the metaverse at this point?
Well, it's small right now. This is the beginning of an entirely new technology and a new way that people communicate. But I can't tell you the actual percentage of their marketing budgets, but what I can say is that it's more of an experiential advertising and marketing. Like I said, with the Molson, the Miller Lite bar that we did, the average length of time was mid 20 minutes that someone was interacting with the Miller brand. With the Bacardi activation that we did for Angel's Envy, it was over an hour that people were spending inside that particular activation. So it's a different kind of advertising than putting a billboard up or throwing a TV commercial on. It's more experiential. And while today brands are embracing this as a marketing tool, what we are seeing is, as I mentioned before, the next version of the internet. There's no reason. One of our clients is Atlantic Records, and we do various things for Atlantic, whether it be promoting a new artist. We were the guys that brought Jason Derulo into the metaverse. It's even in his music video. But what's stopping us? I can put 20,000 people in Rogers Arena to see Drake, but I could put 20 million people in to see a concert in the metaverse. And so where is this going is the point. It's not about marketing and advertising. It's about them using the technology today to figure out how they embrace this tomorrow.
Right. So how big, how quick can this get?
Well, I have no idea. What I do know is that the metaverse represents a better way than today's internet to market, to communicate, to interact with and develop a relationship with your customers and potentially sell them a product or service. So I personally believe that every company that has an e-commerce presence today will have a metaverse presence tomorrow. We've talked about big brands, but we also at TerraZero work with government. We work with government on products that we're developing that, they're defined inside the metaverse, but we call it actually the intraverse. It's almost like the intranet to the internet. It's a private environment where IP is protected, data is protected, credit card transactions can occur. A lot of people think the metaverse is a crypto world. Yes, crypto is used as utility. So in other words, blockchain for decentralized worlds, every building, every avatar, every wearable, every concert venue, whatever, those are NFTs secured on a blockchain and it's managed without a CEO or without a company overseeing it. But crypto itself is more of a utility in the metaverse. And, when you think about it, 98% of the world's population has never had a crypto wallet at this point. So it still has tremendous growth. But our thinking is, why do we only focus on crypto or the 2% that have that ability versus the 100% that have credit cards? Yeah. And that's one of the things that at TerraZero, we develop these proprietary technologies to enable Jimmy John's to accept a credit card inside the metaverse world and have a product delivered in the real world.
So then what does a typical brand build look like, or a campaign for you guys, in terms of obviously not just like the marketing side that we're all seeing, publicly, but what all goes into it from the back end?
Yeah, this was the biggest challenge with building TerraZero. We're now at about 35 employees and contractors, was finding the right talent, being able to build the types of activations and understanding the different programming languages that are used in each of the different worlds. Now, most of them are built on a gaming platform called Unity. Some are built on Unreal 5. But start to finish, how it usually works, we'll take a client, PwC is one of our clients. They're also a great partner of ours. But to build something, it usually takes about 4 weeks of discovery. So we work with their marketing team and their branding team and their lawyers, believe it or not, because they have to protect their IP. To understand what are they trying to accomplish. Then that goes into the modeling division, and the modelers are basically artists, and they create versions of what the client is looking for. That usually takes about a month. Once the client is happy, we then go to programming. Programmers make it all come to life. So start to finish, a campaign like a Bacardi campaign that we talked about earlier, or a Miller campaign, is usually 6 to 8 weeks, somewhere in that region. So
then from a revenue standpoint for TerraZero, what all are you charging for? Is it like, one lump sum based on a brand build, or is there, an ongoing fee as you guys are collecting data and analytics after the fact, or what does that look like?
Yeah, it's both. So the complexity of the design and the experience usually guides how much we charge the clients, but they're usually $100,000 to $200,000 a build. At this point, then there's the opportunity. The client wants to know who was in their activation, who interacted with them. They want to know how they interacted, et cetera. Now, what we do as a company, and one of the great things about Web3 Metaverse, is that data protection and privacy is at the forefront of what we're doing. The biggest backlash against Meta and some of these other companies is the fact that we are the product. And in the metaverse, the original builders of the metaverse, the next version of the internet, privacy is very key. So even our data analytics, we do not collect information that links an avatar to a real person's identity. And that's something that we've run by all of our brand clients. Everybody is completely satisfied with that and happy with that. Because they want to develop a relationship with the customer that doesn't mean let's sell them other goods and services that have nothing to do with Bacardi. It's about Bacardi. And so I guess your general, I forgot the original question. I go on these tangents sometimes.
No, it's good. I'm actually learning so much. So no, I was just talking about, the lump sum kind of at the beginning and then the ongoing revenues for you guys.
Yes. So on the data side, yes, we do charge for data analytics and post-campaign reports. What we're seeing now is repeat customers. It's one thing to get a Molson. Miller is actually the sub brand, but Molson Coors is the parent brand. It's one thing to get them to do something for the Super Bowl, but it's another thing to get them to do something on a quarterly or monthly basis. And now we're seeing that as a company. We're seeing these companies that have tried something, they liked it, and now they're repeating the same thing, and it will become more and more as part, like you talked about earlier, a percentage of their budget. Yeah. But I'd like to get back a little bit towards some of our technology platforms because, yes, the studio is doing very well. I think we're probably adding 60 to 70% revenue growth per quarter. We've only been in business for 3 quarters. So I think our first quarter, the studio did a couple $100,000. The next quarter, the studio did about 400. This quarter is around 500 or 600. So it is growing and it's scalable, but it's not as scalable as the type of companies I like to build. So the studio, what it does is working with PwC and working with Salesforce and CBS and Estee Lauder and Molson and Atlantic and Bacardi. These kinds of clients give credibility to TerraZero. Okay. But that credibility we use to build the tools that they want. So usually as a technology company, you create a technology, you create a product, and you hope people will adopt it and buy it and use it. The magic about what we're building here is we're taking our existing clients and we're saying, how could we make this better for you? And one of them says, hey, we need fiat payment solutions. Another one says, we need privacy of our IP and we want to do training inside the metaverse, but we need to be sure of the security of that. So that's why we created the Introverse product. And the Introverse product, while it's accessible from the various metaverse worlds, it is a private environment that is completely secure. So if you want to do training for your new staff, or you want to hold a board meeting or whatever, we can do that inside the Introverse product that we're developing. Another product that we're really excited about that we'll be launching very soon is, when we first started the company, my partner said, okay, you got to buy some land. You need land on which to build stuff. And I said, well, where do we buy land? And he said, I don't know. And I said, well, which world do we buy land? And where within those worlds do we buy land? The point being that there is a huge gap that we are bridging from the real world to the metaverse. And what I mean by that is we're launching something called Amadea. Amadea.com will essentially allow people to buy, sell, rent land, buildings, structures, whatever you need to bridge from the real world to the virtual world, you will be able to purchase and manage through Amadea. This is a tool that our own clients are now starting to test. So instead of them calling our team and having their account manager work with them on every step of the way, they could be doing a lot of this stuff themselves. And so those are the kinds of tools that we're excited about. Something that is in development that we hope to have in beta by the end of Q1 is what I believe is the next version of social media. So today, you might have a Facebook page and you display your pictures, you tell the world how great your life is, and you message your friends and you learn about what everybody's up to and things like that. Yeah. And that's great. But what if you had your own apartment? And inside your own apartment, you were able to invite your friends inside, their avatars. They could come and hang out with you instead of simply seeing pictures of you. Sure, your wall would have your pictures from your last vacation. And what if you had a TV in your apartment in the metaverse and you could have a Netflix subscription or an NFL Access subscription where you invite your friends over? Sure, you're hanging out in the virtual world, but you're watching a movie together or you're watching an NFL game together. And what if you could have your streaming radio inside your apartment in the metaverse? Or what if you could have a limited edition Gucci couch for your apartment in the metaverse?
I'll take one of those.
So what I'm trying to say is that social media as it is today is basically a one-way thing. I tell everybody, hey, this is what I'm doing. Aren't I great? All that kind of stuff. And I'm the product. Those companies are selling my data so that people can market to me. In the metaverse version of social media and what we're building, you will have your own apartment. You are not the product. The product are the small microtransactions that we sell to you to customize your apartment or your space. Maybe instead of a view of Vancouver outside of your apartment window in the metaverse, you would prefer a view of Kilimanjaro. Well, we charge you for that. Exactly, or the beach or whatever it is. And so a lot of people think the metaverse is just kind of like a video game, somewhere we go. The metaverse is not that. It is the blending of the real world and the virtual world. And an example of this is, I don't believe that people are going to walk around with TVs strapped on their heads. That is not the experience that we like. Right now, the metaverse is primarily a 2D, it's a 3D environment, but seen on a regular display. AR is going to be a big deal this year. And AR, what I mean by that is augmented reality and cross reality. And so this Christmas and this Consumer Electronics Show, that's the biggest show every year, you're going to see different brands and companies like Lenovo and Apple and Microsoft, and they're all coming out with glasses like these. And they don't completely immerse you, but what it allows you to do is see a digital overlay on the real world. And so our clients, like let's take a client like Nike, for example, and you walk into a Nike store in the real world. You're on Toronto, you're on Bloor Street. You walk into the Nike store, you see all the same shoes that you would see with the naked eye, but you touch a button on the side of your glasses, and now you will see limited edition digital versions that might be for your avatar in the metaverse world. You might be able to look at your friend, and instead of their real world person, you see their avatar. And it's important to know, as we move into this next generation or this next version of the internet, one of the things that made social media so huge was that you could basically be something that you might not be. And in the real world, this is who I am. This is what I've got. But in the metaverse, you can be anything that you want. And I think that's a really compelling reason why the metaverse is taking off.
I have so many questions that just came out of that. So I guess just quickly going back to, like, you're talking about some of the technology applications that you guys are making almost, behind the scenes for different clients. How do you, launch those and monetize those, separately from within what you're doing now and really launch them as standalone products?
So you have the studio. The studio is real simple. We charge an hourly rate for different parts of that build. So modelers, designers, programmers, project managers. We then add our margin on the top, just like an advertising agency, just like a video game company. That's real simple. Yeah. Then you have the data analytics division. Right now, the data is more of a one-shot snapshot of what your Bacardi, you need the data that was related to your event. Fantastic. Yeah. But where we're going with the data is a subscription model. So we've teamed up with Avison Young as one of our partners. Avison Young is the real estate company. And so to better learn what's happening in the metaverse so that brands and businesses, here's the thing, is 6 months ago, Apple would call their real estate representative and they would say, hey, you know what? We need a new flagship store in Tokyo and we want one in New York. Very soon, and it's already started, they'll call that same commercial real estate broker and say, we need that store in Tokyo. We need a new one near Times Square. And by the way, we also need another location in the metaverse. And so you're seeing the commercial real estate industry is really cozying up to companies like TerraZero because they know that this just represents more inventory that they're going to be able to sell to their clients. As it's not like the internet where you could just have a web page. In the metaverse world, you kind of need to have land on which to build whatever you're building, your store, your office, your concert venue, whatever. So it represents another stream of revenue for them. But the point, coming back to your original point, revenue from data will become a subscription model where you subscribe and every quarter you will receive a snapshot of what's happening in the metaverse. Okay. Where I get excited are our very scalable products. Things like Amadea. Amadea is kind of like an Amazon for Web3. It's everything you need to get into the metaverse. We obviously take a percentage of all the sales that go through there. The other product is the Introverse product. This is the private environment that governments are using right now. We're testing right now, that companies are using for training purposes. Those have a different cost. And then you've got products like what I'm talking about with our social media product, which is where we give everybody a free apartment. And
Right.
within that apartment, you can customize it. And it might cost you $5.99 for the subscription to Napster's streaming service. Or it might cost you $11.99 for the Netflix subscription for your TV in there. And it might cost you, $50 for the custom limited edition Gucci couch that I know you're very interested in. So we make microtransactions whereby the customer is not the product. So we're not tracking what these people are doing in the metaverse and then selling that data. We are literally providing them an environment that they have a more immersive social media presence within. And then we're generating revenues by selling them incremental products and services for their virtual existence.
Right. No, okay. That is really helpful. You guys are really busy. You're definitely working on a lot more than I knew about. So I'm really glad we did that. This is really helpful. I did want to just jump into another line of questioning really, really quickly. So I know that you guys recently filed your qualifying transaction to go public. Do you guys have any idea yet of your go public date?
No, it's kind of like, we're not in a huge rush. We're not going public. Traditionally, you would go public because you need to raise a ton of capital. My last company was DMG, and that was a very capital intensive business. But, with what we're doing at TerraZero, we're already cash flowing. The studio is doing plenty of revenue. This is not as capital intensive a business as many companies, in technology. But the reason that we're going public is for a few reasons. One is there is no significant player in the space right now that is a public company that has everything under one shop. So one of the reasons the brands work with TerraZero is because everything is in-house. We own all of the land on which we can put their activations. We have a full studio that can take everything that they want and bring it to life. We have the programmers that work with the different languages involved in the different worlds. And we have the data analytics team to help them understand how to improve their next campaigns, what was working and what wasn't working, et cetera. So the reason we're going public is to give exposure for investors into the metaverse, into an all-in-one full services company, but also because we also understand that we are forever tied to technology Web3 crypto. And that is definitely, that has very high ebbs and flows when it comes to interest. And so when you're already public and you don't require capital anytime soon, when the excitement is there, you can use that equity to as a currency to acquire other talent. Like I said at the beginning, the biggest challenge with this company is finding the right talent. There are so few people that understand the metaverse very well. That was our biggest challenge. So of course we have the leadership position today. There's no one that has bigger clients than TerraZero has. But in order to continue and maintain that leadership position, we want to acquire a lot of our competitors, these small, tiny little shops of people that have learned these skills over the last couple of years and are just starting to understand how valuable they are. Very similar to the beginning of the internet. I'm old enough to remember the mid-90s. And I remember that in the mid-90s, web designers, e-commerce experts, social media experts, online marketers, commerce experts, technologies, they didn't exist. An entirely new economy was created when the internet took off. And I think we're going to see the same thing here, where we have a whole bunch of young people. They understand this world of gaming and this world of being immersive through things like Roblox and Fortnite and games like that, and Minecraft. And we're starting to see those skills that they develop turn into real jobs that have major demand, like these 3D modelers. At one point, we had a 17-year-old employee because he was so good at building stuff in the Decentraland world that you got to hire this guy. He was 17 years old, still going to school. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a new economy that is going to be created as a result of this, and new jobs and technologies and positions that we don't even know about today.
Well, congratulations on, obviously being in operation for only 3 quarters and already being cash flow positive. So
we're cash flow positive on the studio side. The technology side does require extra cash, as you can imagine.
Well, still, that's great. I've definitely learned a lot more about the metaverse, and I'm sure anyone who watches this video is going to feel the same afterwards. So any final words that you'd like to leave us with?
This is coming, and this is a sea change that we're seeing here. And once you start seeing the applications of what can be done in the metaverse environment, I think everybody is going to embrace this. And you're going to, instead of going to walmart.com and looking at a bunch of static web pages and adding them to your cart, you're going to be walking through Walmart in your virtual world and picking those products off the shelves. And that is happening, and it's coming.
Okay, well, on that note, thank you very much for joining me today, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks very much.